Good morning, Leah. Sorry. There we go. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I need to, I guess, do some more extensive pre-checks. And that'll be... Good morning, Bailey. Good morning. Yeah, I'll need to do some more extensive pre-checks, I guess. I'll make a checklist so that I don't do that again. Listen, what you just didn't hear, it was pure gold. That was like, if I don't remember exactly what I said, but if you could hear it, you would not have any more questions. You'd have a sense of purpose. You would know exactly who you are and who you're meant to be. You would know what to do the moment this stream ends. But you know what you do right now? It's just stick around for episode 5. Letting go of the iron rod. Kind of a mystical name for today's episode. I was saying that today I am drinking coffee for the first time on stream, which was kind of scary to say out loud earlier, but now I'm like, I'm a new me. It's been 2 minutes. My microphone already wasn't working, so nothing scares me anymore. I was telling a little bit of a story. So the first time I had coffee, I was on a Skills USA trip. I was driving and I had picked up one of my friends. It was like, I think this was after I was 18, so I was like a full adult. Otherwise I wouldn't have been able to drive. And we were going to go like interview people that were going to replace us because she was also a state officer with me. We were going to go interview the potential state candidates for the next year. And I was like, oh, I'll try some of that coffee. It smells pretty good. I tried it. Didn't taste very good. I didn't like it, but I was like, well, shoot. I actually ordered my own. I think I had like a coupon or something, got a free one. And about like 2 hours into the interviews, we're sitting there, and because I'm the president, like I'm in the actual room with like the state director and some other people that were like asking the questions of the students. And all of a sudden I was like, I gotta go. Like I'll be right back. And I stood up in the middle of the interview, ran to the bathroom, and just like, coffee. It's fun. I've learned a lot since then. Obviously you have to eat. There's a lot that goes into it. There's like a whole rule. Technically, I don't think I've even been awake long enough to be having this coffee in order for it to be the least impactful. But anyways, I feel like I've stalled long enough. 7:05. Good morning. Welcome. Today's episode is called Letting Go of the Iron Rod. And if you are LDS, if you are Mormon, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. If you aren't, then I'll give you a little bit of an explanation. So, the story starts off in 2 Nephi, which is a book in the Book of Mormon, similar to how the Bible is broken up into parts written by different people. This part, it was the second of the Nephi books, and I think there's 3 in total. Anyways, it's a reflection of a dream. Maybe this is actually 1 Nephi. Yeah, I think it's 1 Nephi, because it's Nephi's dad. The dream is it was this vision that Nephi's dad had. His name was Lehi. I believe it's 1 Nephi 8, chapter 8 and 11. Lehi. This is the chapter summary. Lehi sees a vision of the tree of life. He partakes of its fruit and desires his family to do likewise. He sees a rod of iron, a straight and narrow path, and the mists of darkness that enshroud men. Sariah, Nephi, and Sam partake of the fruit, but Laman and Lemuel refuse. And it says this happens at about 600 to 592 BC. And it came to pass we're not going to actually read it. And it came to pass that this dream kind of ran my life for a while. The iron rod, the metaphor here is there's this dark, misty place. You can't see anything around you. It's like you can kind of hear like screams off in the distance. It's just like a very like a nightmarish realm, right? And when the dream starts, he's holding on to this iron rod, which is kind of like a handrail for stairs. And he's just holding on to it, and he can't see anything, and he's just like following this rod blindly through the dark. And eventually it leads to this like glowing tree that has this fruit on it that is like the most delicious, tasty fruit that he's ever tasted. And he's like, I want everybody in my life and in my family to have this fruit. It's the best fruit. And in his dream, like Laman and Lemuel, who are his two sons, who are like not good guys, they're kind of like the first bad dudes in the Book of Mormon. They let go of the iron rod, right? They don't follow it. And so there's this sort of idea that if you stick to this rod, if you hold on to it, it'll get you good stuff in your life. You'll get to the good fruit. And in the dream, there's also this place called the Great and Spacious Building, which is full of people who are partying and trying to tempt you to let go of the rod and be like, it's okay, come hang out with us. But yeah, very like this pretty big dream. And that was sort of how I approached life. I've mentioned a little bit that storyline. Hold on, I'll skip this song. I don't want lyrics. Storyline is sort of what has replaced my concept of spirituality. I think they are almost synonymous. Spirituality and story are very interlinked, right? A huge part of what religion gave me was the storyline for my life, which was the iron rod. Just you hold on to this thing and you follow it, and good things will happen to you. And there's just one right path, the straight and narrow. Last episode, we left off with how I started my deconstruction journey, and we finished off right where I kind of like explained a little bit of the social impact. So I think I had mentally left a little, like a while before this, maybe like a year before this. But the moment in my mind that I kind of think of as like, I was still sort of like, maybe one finger was on this iron rod, right? Like I was like, I'm not fully ready to let go of the iron rod and just be lost in the dark. It's comforting to have this thing that to like anchor yourself and to get your bearings and to lead, to kind of guide you. It's like a GPS, right? When I told my family that that Leah and I were no longer Mormon, was probably the moment where I felt like I kind of took my last finger off the iron rod. I was like, okay, the cat's out of the bag. My family knows. I don't really have to keep, like, I wasn't fully putting up a front, but I wasn't like doing things to make them know that I was no longer LDS. Because I was really afraid of how they were going to react. But they took it surprisingly well. I think that I'm very grateful for my family and the way that they took it. And they were kind of just like, okay, like if that's what you want to do, we don't really agree with you. We think you're making a terrible mistake. But we love you no matter what. I think that was probably the best possible response they could have given me. And I took my finger off of that iron rod, and then a couple months later, I quit my job. And it was like, I quit my job, I let go of the iron rod, I left Mormonism, told my parents, let go of the iron rod. but I still had something in my life, this sort of structure of like, of a career, of capitalism, of instead of following this storyline of religion, it was sort of almost replaced by this storyline of my job. And when I left my job, it was like, okay, now I don't have my religious storyline or my spiritual storyline, and I don't have my career storyline anymore. Like I'm basically starting over fresh, brand new. And that was like the first time that I looked around and I realized, like, holy shit, I am in the middle of an ocean on a tiny boat, and I don't have anything guiding me. It just totally like, oh, it's up to me now to figure out where I want to go. And it's kind of overwhelming, especially when, as an LDS person, a huge part of every decision that I made was, how am I going to prepare for the next life? It kind of felt like everything I did in this life was more to get ready for the next one. And when I took away the framework of the next life, as well as like the certainty of just kind of moving up in my career, make more money, that kind of stuff, when I took that away, it was like I don't have a goal anymore. Like, what's the point of all of this? It seemed, and it kind of is just a fact, right? Like, if you are LDS, let's just do kind of a thought experiment for a second, and to try and empathize and kind of feel what maybe I was feeling at this moment. If you do think that there isn't something after this, there isn't some like judgment day or reward that you're gonna get based off of how you lived your life, what is the point? Like, why wake up every day? Why go to work every day? Why struggle every single day to make sure that you survive? And the reason why I say struggle, I kind of think of life in general is the struggle of life, or the work of life. Because if you don't do something to perpetuate life, it will end. So it means you have to do some kind of work, some kind of struggle to continue this thing. So I was like, why should I struggle every single day? And keep in mind, super depressed at the time. So that adds a layer of like, I'm not really able to feel joy. It's still Mental Health Awareness Month. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I do want to make sure that I touch a little bit more on like all of these things that I've learned about mental health. But a huge part of it is now I kind of understand what people are going through when they experience depression, which is something that before I was kind of like, oh, it's not like that big of a deal. Just kind of get over it. Like, move on, trick your brain, like say something. But there was nothing I could do to make myself feel joy and happiness. I was married to this beautiful, generous, kind woman who does so much to make me happy, but like I couldn't feel it. I was just so like numb. For the highs and the lows, it was just like this just kind of white noise almost. So there was I couldn't really motivate myself. I couldn't give myself this why of like, oh, because the joys of life, like everybody should just want to keep on living because it's good. Like, there's sort of, if you don't feel the desire to perpetuate your life or continue your life, it's almost like there's no reason to do anything. At least that's how I was feeling. And there was this sort of pressure, now that I kind of like didn't know what I was doing with my life, didn't have a full goal, there was this pressure to quickly like replace my old beliefs with something new and like feel like I had it together, because I had all of the answers. I had everything I needed to know as an LDS person, and making the decision to kind of let go of that without knowing what to replace it with, there was just this sort of pressure to prove that I made the right decision to leave. I think a lot of people believe that if you do good things, God will bless you with good things. And if you do bad things, God won't bless you with good things, and bad things will probably happen to you in your life. And so from the perspective of everybody that loved me, I did a bad thing, and then God gave me depression, and God gave me a mental breakdown, which just continued to add this more and more pressure, which is ultimately kind of what I think culminated in the mental breakdown, the panic attacks, all that stuff, was the pressure. But in order for me to figure out what I believed and make my own decision, find my own way, I had to separate myself from that pressure. And finding a why with nothing after, again, like this, what's the point feeling? Why should I get up every single day, cook, clean, work, struggle, make money, if in a million years nothing matters? Everything's going to be gone. There's not going to be any humans. Any suffering that happens today or tomorrow is like the only reason. I kind of believed that the only reason suffering existed was because there were people aware enough to experience suffering, right? So like, if we wanted to eliminate all suffering in the world, if there was no people in the world, there's nothing to suffer. And if I don't exist, I don't have to suffer. But there was this like, I should probably exist, right? Like you're given this one life. What do you do with it? For so many people, like they have this just innate drive to like live and experience things. But my depression had kind of taken that away. So I was left with absolutely nothing. Like the blankest blank slate of a 25-year-old, like maybe in the history of mankind. The hubris. Just kidding. But the point was that like I had nothing to base my life around anymore. And it took almost an entire year to find something to just like to work for, to walk towards. Going back to that analogy of a boat in the ocean with nothing on the skyline, like on the horizon, right? I had to kind of just pick a random direction and be like, all right, I'll go in this direction for a while and see what happens. It was like maybe all I had was the stars above me, right? And there's no land and I don't know how to read the stars. And so I was just like, well, I'll just pick one and follow it and see what happens. And I made a list of a couple of things to emphasize the belief that I had that this life, the purpose of this life was to kind of prepare for the next one. Alma 34:32 says this life is the time for men to prepare to meet God. This is a disaster. Hello? There we go. I gotta get a new thing. I have this like sound thingy that I bought that powers the microphone, or I didn't buy this one. I bought two, and they both stopped working like 2 days before I decided I was going to start streaming. So I pulled out the old one that my family had growing up, and it occasionally, I guess, decides to just turn itself off. So back to the story. And I guess I'll take a second. Leah says, "What about me?" And that is an inside joke. Because during this time, right, like I spent so much time trying to find meaning for myself, trying to find my purpose, that I was consistently talking about, like, what do I do? What do I do? And like trying to come up with these elaborate plans for my life. And Leah would end those conversations with, "What about me? What do I do? Where do I fit into this story?" All right, moving on. This life is the time for men to prepare to meet God. Alma 34:32. So that gives you the reason. It gives you like the purpose of your life. During this life, prepare to meet God. The whole point of this life is to get ready for the next one, which gives you kind of the direction that you need to do something with your life, right? But it also kind of minimizes this life. Like if you live your entire life thinking like, it doesn't really matter what happens in this life because the next one, everything's going to be fixed. Like I'll be with my family, like I'll have a perfect body, I'll have a perfect knowledge. Doesn't matter how hard and bad this life is, as long as I can just like kind of get through it, I'll be able to meet God. And taking that away, it was like, okay, now what do I do with this life? Because I kind of, there wasn't really this emphasis on like the things I do in this life before. And I had to like completely rebuild my identity. Who am I without Mormonism? And that's where story kind of comes in. So in spirituality and mindfulness, in psychology, there's this concept of something called the witness observer. So when you think about, like, when you say the word I, you're referring to whatever the thing is that is like experiencing your life. This, it's like the player one in your brain. It's your sense of self. It's your ego. And it's a concept. It's a concept, I. To feel separate from the rest of the world, from the rest of humanity, from the rest of your species, to just be a single unit, to be an I. And the witness observer determines our experience. Like if you are just sitting, not talking, and just kind of looking around you and think like, okay, what do I see in front of me? I see some lights. I see this like hand now behind me. And how does that thing make you feel? Like that reminds me of my family, my wife. I want to grab this for a second. This has come to be like one of the most important things in my office. Leah gave it to me. And for those who don't know, Leah broke her pinky finger the year or the summer before she started playing basketball at, or no, maybe it wasn't the summer. I think she was like home for Christmas break or something. But it was before the basketball season officially started for Utah State University, when she transferred to Utah State and was the first person to walk on to the basketball team in a long time. She broke her pinky, and so now she can't fully straighten it. And so I wanted her to hold her pinky up next to this little wooden thing, and I modeled the pinky to be the exact same shape as hers. So this is like a little reminder of Leah Leah's love for me. Every time I look at it, I think about that. And so that thing makes my witness observer feel happy, feel like those experiences. And I can assign meaning to almost any experience that I want to. We did that affirmation at the end of last episode. I think it was the end of the last episode, and it was the ups and downs of life, right? And it is all up to us on how we interpret the ups and downs of our life. You can go into an experience and you can say, this is going to be a great experience. And it'll be a great experience. And you can go into an experience and say to yourself, this is going to suck, and it will suck. It's all about the story that we tell to our witness observer. And we actually can kind of trick our witness observer into thinking and feeling however we want to. So that sort of became my new way of viewing the world. Was I pretty much, if I want to feel good, if I want to feel bad, if I want to feel anything, it's kind of, I have to put the circumstances or the information in front of the witness observer. And if I tell a good story with my life, like if I imagine my eyes are like a movie screen and there's someone else is sitting in my brain watching the movie screen of my life, all I can try to do is tell a good story with my life, through my eyes, through the experiences that I have. And when you think about things that way, there's almost you're kind of incentivized to just sort of close your eyes and imagine the best life possible, right? If you think about things purely in that way, it's like you can just make up a story and tell it to your witness observer, and you're going to feel like you're living a good life, and that you would just go probably to a mental asylum and be crazy for the rest of your life. Maybe that'd be fun. Maybe that'd be a peaceful way of living. I feel like I maybe got a little bit off track. So let's go back a little bit. I felt lost. I felt depressed. I felt like there was no purpose. Previously, I had thought that my entire purpose of life. Hello. Okay. I found an easier way to fix it, I guess. It did it again. I'm really going to work on that before next episode. Bailey said, being depressed during that would be so rough. Glad you overcame at least part of it. Joy and the good times are definitely what make life worth it, even through all the BS, lol. And then she said, oh my gosh, that is so cute about the wood hand. Yeah, I love it. It's the little things like that just remind you of the people who love you and believe in you, that makes it worth it. So when I was feeling super lost, feeling like I had no direction and there was no reason for me to really try, I then gave myself this pressure of let's tell a good story to my witness observer. And pressure is not bad. Pressure is good. But I also was in the midst of anxiety, depression, spiraling, panic attacks. What I felt like I had lost during that time was confidence in myself and my ability to handle things. To kind of trust myself that I can figure stuff out. So then I kind of had to overcome that, and I had to feel like I was okay with being lost, being confused, being messy, making mistakes. And like, how do you develop a moral compass? What is good and bad when you don't have like long-term consequences? If nothing matters in a million years, or let's say 2 million years or 1 billion years, right? Like, I don't know what's going to happen to humanity, where the story of humanity is going to go. But if nothing matters, then it's like you can pretty much do whatever you want to. And it's almost encouraged to do whatever you want to. You can lie and you can cheat and you can use the system to get yourself to the top. And if the only thing that matters is your witness observer, that story that you're telling to yourself, then hey, Paula. Good morning. How are you? I guess it's not morning for you. Welcome. I'm so glad that you stopped by. Today I'm telling the story about letting go of the iron rod, leaving Mormonism for full. It's afternoon for you. I've been good. I want to get back to the story real quick, but I will talk to you immediately after. I have so much to catch you up on. To give some background, I used to stream on Twitch, and Kurdish TNT, his name's Paula on Twitch. He was like one of my only viewers, and he lives in India, and he would come by and he would hang out with me every single day. He's awesome. He's amazing. I love him. Love you, Paula. Okay. So that is where this concept of well, okay. So if nothing matters but the story you're telling to your witness observer, you can do whatever you want to, right? Iraq. Sorry. He's from Iraq, not India. Iraq. But that's where Sonder comes in. So one of my first memories in life was one of my friends when I was like probably 5, 6, or 7 years old. It was before we moved to Pleasant Grove. He got this Power Rangers game for his birthday that like you had to strap these things to your wrist and to your ankles, and you could like punch in real life, and then the game character in the video game would also punch. It was like before the Wii came out. So I was like, whoa, this is so immersive, and like video games are the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. You can literally experience what it's like to be a Power Ranger. This is so cool. And I would like go over to his house after his birthday, and I want to play with him and I want to do it. And then I would come home, and my mom would be like, you have to come home. And I'd be like, I don't want to come home. And then I'd cry and be a child and like be like, I wish I lived at Kyle's house. I wish I could have Kyle's life. And then it was like this like lightning strike moment. The first time I thought like, wait, if I switched spots with Kyle, then he would just be living the life that I'm living. So somebody out there in the world would be living the life I'm living. Why should it be him instead of me? Which was like my first taste of this thing called Sonder, which is like being aware that every other person has this rich and full story that is their life, right? Just as much as your life seems to have this meaning and this purpose and this full storyline, everybody's has that. Everybody, the person you're driving past on the freeway, they have a whole story. That's crazy. And if you were to switch places, somebody in the world would still be living your story. And so it's like, if you think about the witness observer as being the one thing that matters, then other people's witness observers, like no single person's experience is more or less valuable than others. If I switched places with Kyle and Kyle had to live what I thought was a bad life when I was 6 years old, nothing changes in the world. Like, objectively speaking, the world is still the exact same place. There's still the same amount of joy and happiness. And so it was my decision at that time to, rather than Freaky Friday Kyle and switch bodies and lives with him, it was like, okay, I will not research how to switch my consciousness with Kyle's, and instead I will happily allow him to live this amazing life from my perspective of having this Power Rangers video game. I'll let him enjoy that, and that will be his experience, and I will just try to make the most of my experience. Which is a crazy philosophical thought for a 6-year-old boy to be making. Around the same time, I was like I stepped on a roly-poly to see if I could feel its spirit go through my foot, and I couldn't. And then I just was like, that roly-poly's family is going to be devastated when he doesn't come home from work today. So morally, this gave me the framework. Story can still provide that framework for me of, even if nothing matters in the grand scheme of things, the impact that my story has on other people's stories is just as real as my own experience. And so if you can bring that value or that perspective into your interactions with other people, and just maybe think to yourself, like, how can I make this person's story a little bit better? Maybe how can I maybe like light up the movie screen in their eyes for their witness observer, for that player one that's in the seat in your brain, watching and feeling like it's experiencing this life. From a spiritual framework, it might be like your spirit, whatever is in this physical body, the thing that leaves when you die, maybe that's the witness observer. This is getting me excited to kind of further dive into my framework, the story framework that I've built to kind of replace spirituality. And I'm trying my hardest to incorporate science and like neuroscience, psychology, current philosophy. I'm trying to kind of weave together this net of things that have been proven as like true, and then just like philosophical theories. Because I want my thing to my reasoning to feel like it is valid and fits. So that's sort of how I established this sense of morality post-religion, was just seeing everybody's story as equally as valid as mine, and understanding that every action that I have in the real world is going to have kind of send out like ripples across other people's stories. And even if I died right now, I've left some ripples in other people's stories. So in a sense, like I do literally live on in the stories of others for a certain amount of time. And the amount of time that you continue to live on, I guess, is kind of like the impact on the story that they had. But that still didn't really answer this sort of like, it didn't give me any certainty. It was just kind of like, oh, okay, cool. Now, like, I'm the author of my own story. Where do I go? And like, how do you find meaning for yourself? What do you actually care about as an individual? And there's this quote from, I think his name is like Albert Camus. It says, "You will never live if you are looking for the meaning of life." This idea that like you have to kind of be present and just like experience what's happening now, instead of always looking forward and being like, what is going to happen? What am I going to do? Who am I going to be? Like, you sort of have to just tune in, which is so counterintuitive for a Mormon person, because as we said earlier, the purpose of this life is to prepare to meet God. So how do you take this, like, how do you switch your perspective from looking so far ahead that you're not even thinking about this life, you're thinking about the next life? So it literally doesn't matter what happens in this life. As long as I'm doing like the good things, the right things, I'll be rewarded in the next. So how do you bring your perspective and your value all the way from out here, beyond your future, to right now, and like tune in to, what am I feeling? Like, who am I supposed to be? I've talked to Leah about this as kind of like, it's like the tree trunk of our timeline. A tree, you have your trunk, and then it kind of branches out into like however many, we'll say for the sake of this one, infinite branches. But there's sort of this core, like, main storyline, I guess, trunk, core of who you are as a human being. And I think we're most in tune with that when we're kids. Like, if you ever watch kids, or if you've ever worked with kids, they just have this like innate interest and curiosity about their own things. Like, their personalities are different. Like, they're just their own like unique kind of creation. And if we just sort of allowed that person to explore and deepen their connection with their unique set of curiosities, their unique set of personality traits, it'd be like just letting a tree grow how it's supposed to. But when you start to impose all of these expectations and things onto a person about how they should live their life and who they should be, you get this sort of unnatural growth of like tilting the tree over, trying to align it with who you want to be, which ultimately damages the tree. It's going to be leaning, it's going to be weaker, it's going to be like the structure isn't how it was meant to be. And it's going to take time to get back to the path that it's kind of innately drawn to. So it felt like I had kind of pushed myself in a certain direction because of the expectations of my religion, my family, schooling, society. Like, there's social constructs built around like a 9-to-5, a career, money, like power. There's so much stuff that kind of tilted my tree almost and took me away from what I felt like was maybe my innate curiosities and my innate path. I don't think it fully pushed me into somebody I wasn't going to be, but it just made it more difficult to like find my own way. I taught myself WordPress when I was 14 years old so that I could build a website for my parents' farm, right? Because we had our family farm and it was our livelihood, and they needed a website to be able to collect orders and like sell our milk and our eggs and all of these products. And it's like, I don't know if I ever would have learned that skill had this life not pushed me in that direction. And that's something that I like, when I'm not doing it because I have to in order to survive, web design, web development is actually like a fun kind of creative process, and I do enjoy it from time to time. Same with video. Like, I learned video because I needed to create media for other people. And a lot of the things that I know how to do in my life and the things that I've done in my life have simply been because somebody else needed me to do it. Not because I was like, I'm super curious about this thing and I want to explore it. And so I allowed other people to sort of like direct my tree trunk in certain directions. And one of the hardest parts about deconstructing from Mormonism or from just life in general, right, is like, what stuff is here because it's part of who I am, and what stuff is here because somebody else put it on me. And does it even matter? Because this is who I am now. What stuff do you feel like is in your life or a part of you that you're like, maybe if somebody hadn't told me I was supposed to be this way, or like needed something from me, maybe I wouldn't have gone down this path on my own? And am I grateful that I was encouraged to explore something outside of my natural interest or my natural inclination or the natural direction? Or is that something I kind of like resent? I still incorporate a lot of Christian teachings and Mormon teachings into the way that I view the world, the way that I create morals and ethics for myself. And one thing that consistently stands out to me is Christ's invitation or direction to become as a little child, right? He's like talking to a bunch of people, and he says that like their ultimate goal should be to kind of become like a child. And I've thought about like, what does that actually mean? To be like a kid. And if you watch kids, they just do their own thing. And they're just like constantly, they're curious. They're always asking questions. They're just exploring. They're like, everything feels new to them. Everything is this novel experience. And I remember when I was a kid, just like the days felt longer. Life felt more full and more real. And it was like the frame rate of my existence. I was running at a higher frame rate as a kid. And I think a huge part of that was because it was like I was telling my own story, and so I wanted to be present. And the times in my life when I felt like I just was super disassociated, right? Like I was just not present. I was not experiencing I didn't want to be in the experience of my life. That felt to me like the furthest from who I was as a kid, as a child. So when I was left with this totally blank slate of like no more religious direction, no more social career direction, expectations, it's like, okay, the world is my oyster. And there's this like overwhelm of choice. And it took a long time for me to just be like, I gotta just pick something and just start walking, start going in some direction. And that's this show at the moment. I don't know if that's gonna be my like ultimate life, but I feel like I had to start telling a story. I kind of think of it like the current moment, the now. Like what is now is the moment where your pen meets the paper and you're writing your life, you're writing the story of your life. And what you've actually written, the things that have actually happened to you, You can't really go back and change that. Like, this is an ink, permanent ink. You can't go back and erase that stuff. It has to inform the story that you're going to tell going forward, because you're just bound by that. And so from this moment that your pen touches the paper, that's right now. And I was so focused on, like, what am I going to do in the future? What am I going to do in the future? That it was like I was just drawing a line and no words, no space. Like, I was so afraid of telling a story that was the wrong story, going in the wrong direction, that I just, like, froze. I was like, I'm just not going to write anything. And I think a lot of that comes from maybe the permanence of decisions that Mormonism puts on your actions, right? Like, if you do something bad in this life, God's gonna remember that and, like, use it to judge you forever. If you do something good, same thing. Like, there's this eternal permanence to every decision that you make, which puts a lot of pressure to make the right decision, to be perfect. But you can change your story at any moment. If you're writing a word and you don't like the word that you're writing, or you're writing a sentence or a paragraph or a chapter and you don't like it, you can change it from the moment that the tip of your pen meets the paper. You can literally just do a period, but then, and suddenly. Everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. But you still have to work with what you've been given. And if you feel like you don't really know what you want to write, and you're still just figuring it out, welcome. We're in the same boat. Welcome to the boat. Welcome to the ocean. Welcome to the blank page that is our lives. Let's maybe tune in a little bit to that inner child. Like, what were you interested in when you were a kid? What were you curious about? What did you spend your time doing? What did you daydream about when you were a kid? Like, I wanted to be a scientist or an explorer. I wanted to make discoveries. I wanted to be an astronaut. There was a period where I wanted to be in a band. Like, there was all these things, and for some reason I just said, like, oh, that's not gonna happen. I gotta go get a job, a 9-to-5, and that is reality. That is life, right? There's certainly things you have to do to just put ink in the pen. But, like, a huge part of why I'm doing this right now is that, like, I'd rather spend my life trying to write a good story that I'm happy about, that feels meaningful and fulfilling to me, and fail, than successfully write a terrible story. And terrible and good are both subjective things. For some people, a really good story is like a steady job and just kind of the routine. Like, and that is, there's no judgment. There's no right or wrong way to live your life. There's no good or bad way to write your story, as long as your story isn't, like, ruining other people's stories. Those are the questions that I want to explore this season of Braden Moser in the morning. It's like, what are the things that light you up? What are the things that you're naturally curious about? What what are you passionate about beyond just like, I like the goal of having money or power or like a better job? Beyond the goal, what are the things, the processes that you enjoy, that you're passionate about? And I'm pretty passionate about thinking about and talking about the purpose of life, philosophy, like why we're here. It's kind of what I'm just doing all the time naturally in my head. No matter what I try to do, this is still running on in the background. Like this is what I want to get back to. And instead of thinking like I have to do something to then give myself the freedom to then come back to the thing I want to do, let's just try to make the thing I want to do my thing. And that I think represents the fundamental shift that I experienced in the last year of changing my life from preparing to meet God, preparing for the next life, to just sort of like being present. Alan Watts says the meaning of life is to just be alive. Why am I here? I don't know. Why is anyone here? We don't know, but we are here. And we're all different and we're all unique, and there's like, and that there's a reason for that. If it's not beneficial, evolutionarily speaking, for humanity, for the species of humans to all be the same, because if something happens where that way of existing doesn't work, our entire species would die off. So it's the natural variance, it's the natural uniqueness that allows humanity and the human species to continue and to thrive and to adapt. If every tree grows the same, they all get wiped out when the fire comes through. But if some of the trees are different, there's a higher chance that some of those trees are going to survive. And I'm not trying to tell anybody to like quit your job, leave your religion, do shrooms, have a mental breakdown, because that is certainly not the way to do it. And not everybody has a wife that is supportive, or the ability to freelance and make enough money to make car payments. Like, I know I'm coming from a huge place of privilege, but I also know that if I don't use this privilege to actually build something and do something, then I'm just wasting it. So utilize whatever privilege you have. Take advantage of it. Don't be like ashamed of your privilege. Use it to make your story better. And at the same time, just be present. Focus on the moment where your pen meets the paper. Because that's literally where everything happens. You can go back and you can read the story that you're writing, but the rest of the page is blank. And if you're just looking ahead at this blank page, thinking about what you want to write, instead of actually writing, you're never going to get there. And you're not going to know what you want your story to be until you start to write it and you feel, does this feel right to me? I can imagine what it feels like. I can imagine what it would feel like to have 100 people watching this stream right now. But I have 4. And you 4 people who are here right now, you're giving me like, that's everything that I need. That's the experience that I'm having right now. And if I'm just thinking about like what's going to happen when I have 100,000 or whatever, like if that ever comes to fruition, then I'm squandering this moment. So to you 4 watching, I love you. Thanks for coming to the show. Thanks for being here with me. Thanks for sharing your morning with me. And I hope I gave you something to think about today. Friday, same time, same place. Maybe we can get coffee together. Hello, Lewis. Welcome. Thanks for being here. I want to know, anybody who's still here, what was your favorite show or song or character when you were a kid? This memory is super faded for me. It was a very long time ago. In the church when you're a kid, there's this thing called primary. Which is like Sunday school, I guess, for little kids. And you mostly just learn like children's songs and sing them. And one day I was asked, like, what's your favorite song? They were asking, like, what's my favorite church song? But I don't know. It was just like, I was 4 or 5 or 6. I don't know. Super young. And I was like, the Jimmy Neutron theme song. And that was like the song I wanted to sing. Jimmy Neutron was my idol. I just thought, like, I wish I could be that smart. I wish I could have that much freedom to do anything. Phineas and Ferb, same thing. Like, they just, summer vacation, building roller coasters, going to the moon, like the freedom to just imagine, and there was no limits, right? So cool. So think about that. What was it that drew you to media and stories as you were a kid? So Bailey said, and this is in reference to what I said earlier about how do you feel like your tree trunk or the story of your life was directed maybe by someone else. And she said, probably sports, but it definitely is something I love and needed. We started playing soccer in kindergarten, so I have no idea if I would have chosen it or not, but it's for the best. I also had the dream of being an architect because of something my grandma told me. Now I have an engineering degree and I don't even use, and I hated it. That was sort of how I felt about video production for a little while. Lewis says his was Curious George. I love Curious George. What is the man in the yellow hat? What, I'm trying to remember his name. Didn't they just call him like the man in the yellow hat or something, or like Banana Man, or I don't remember. Curious George. Oh, that was a fun show. Ord from Dragon Tales was my guy, says Colin. Ord. And welcome, Colin. Good morning. Love you. Ord. Dragon Tales. Alright, let's see if I can swap this around. So I've been trying to think about like how I want to evolve this show. Like the types of things I want to do. Let's see if this works. So this is Ord. The blue dragon. I don't know a whole lot about him. Let's check out the wiki. I'm an adult. Leah says Mulan for me. What a badass. Yes, Mulan. Honestly, like Mulan was the best Disney movie for so many reasons. I mean, the songs that came out of Mulan, So good. Okay, this wiki thing is not working. Don't know what the heck it is. Ord from Dragon Tales. I have like blurry memories of Dragon Tales. But I love that. That's so niche. It says Ord is the large, strong, fast, blue Dragonland inhabitant. Colin. Big blue dragon, always hungry, real nice guy. That's what I'm talking about. I understand now why that would be your guy. Why he'd be your man. Because that sounds like you. You literally are like a big blue dragon, always hungry, and you're a real nice guy. Mulan is also a fantastic role model, whether you're a man, woman, child, and to me, Mulan is the story of not letting your gender, your situation, the expectations of society prevent you from writing whatever story you want to. You're a girl, you're not supposed to go to war to save your family and your country and your father. And she said, gender be damned. I'm gonna go fight the Huns. And I'm gonna do a friggin' good job at it. I'm gonna be the best Hun fighter. Colin says he was a PBS kid. I was a PBS kid until we got to the farm. Well, I think I was actually more of like a Cartoon Network. Codename Kids Next Door was like a show that I wanted to watch more but didn't get to. Leah says, Colin, I was also a PBS kid because we weren't allowed to watch Disney Channel, really. That's so sad. Disney Channel had some bangers. Hannah Montana, Wizards of Waverly Place. I think that's pretty much all I remember from Disney Channel. But similarly to kind of the archetypes thing I talked about a few episodes ago, right? I still have the card. I keep it right in front of my computer to just remind myself that I need to give things up in order to make space for the new things that I'm trying to build. And life requires an offering to make that happen. But similarly to the archetypes, like what are the archetypes of these characters and these shows and these stories that you were drawn to? How did you take that meaning and incorporate it into your life? Because to me that feels like a really good place to start finding your direction if you feel lost. Like me. Once again, thank you so much for being here, for watching, for hanging out, for chatting. I love you, and I hope you have a fantastic day. I'll see you on Friday. Bye-bye.